Hello, people. Welcome to Jaby We Met. I am your host, Jaby Kouei. This is episode number 5, the Big 5. Last week was episode number 4, and that actually got a very, very positive response from most people. I was actually really, really happy with that. It was the first episode I put out that was only audio, and there were some complaints about that, and so I'm trying my best to address those complaints, to appease those people who wanted video as well. I still stand by my belief that this is better as just an audio format thing that you listen to while you work out, while you drive, while you go to school, while you do your arts, whatever it is you do with your life, with your time. This is better as a concurrent thing to your life, as opposed to you just sitting and watching this, in my opinion. But I'm doing both versions at the same time, one that's audio only and one that has video as well, so you can choose what you want to do, how you want to hang out with Jaby for an hour. On that note, some people don't know what podcasts are necessarily. Most of you do, but for those of you who aren't familiar with podcasts, they're generally an hour long, and they're generally audio only. Some people do video as well, like H3 Productions, and a couple of others who I can't think of right now, but most people just do audio, and that's kind of the style. I guess podcasts are not as popular in India yet, but I'm sure with time they will be. Hopefully I can be the spearhead to that trend. No, I'm just joking. I asked you guys to email me, to leave me messages so I can respond to you if you got any questions. One person emailed me, and I got several comments. I picked out a handful of comments that I will respond to in just a moment. So what's happened since the last episode? Well, one very interesting thing, one exciting thing, is that YouTube reached out to me, not for my American channel, but to pay me to do a reaction to one of their YouTube Red shows. And I thought that was really cool. Achara submitted us for that on a, what do you call those? Brand deals. That's what they're called. And yeah, they got back to us and they said, yeah, we want to move forward with you guys on this. We'll go ahead and do this. And I was like, oh, okay, that's new. This is exciting. You should be seeing a video hopefully next week. But yeah, YouTube paid us to do a YouTube Red reaction. That to me is a little bit of a success. That's really cool. I was very happy to discover that. I watched a movie not too long ago called The Disaster Artist. You may have noticed this if you follow me on Twitter, because I have a Stardust review that I put out that, it sends out a tweet. Anyway, The Disaster Artist. If you've never heard of this movie, it is about the guy who made the movie The Room. Now, let's assume you don't know what The Room is. The Room has been kind of unanimously voted the worst movie of all time. Now, I personally can think of other movies that I would rather not watch ever again that are far worse, but it's kind of like agreed that it is the worst movie of all time because anything a bad movie could do, this movie does. All of the things. All of the things that bad movies do, it does it all in one film. It's remarkable, actually. And so it's one of those things that's so bad, it's cool. It's so bad, it's hilarious and entertaining. It's so bad that it's remarkable. And so James Franco, if you guys don't know who he is, he was in the Spider-Man films with Tobey Maguire. James Franco acquired the rights to the book about the movie The Room and turned that story from the book into a film, The Disaster Artist. Now, the movie The Room was made by a guy named Tommy Wiseau, and the reason I'm going through all this, there's a reason for it. I'll just kind of stick with me. Tommy Wiseau is an interesting character who, for lack of a better word, was kind of delusional about the kind of movie he was making and about his own talents as an actor. He thought that he was a movie star like Brad Pitt, and he thought that his movie should be Oscar nominated. He paid to keep it in theaters for 2 weeks so it could be in the running for an Oscar. Like, he's just really delusional about his state of affairs. Let's just put it that way. Obviously, he's embraced his movie being the worst movie in the world because he's made a whole career out of it. He's made a whole living out of it. Like, his movie was made for $6 million. $6 million. Independent film. And it grossed $1,800 in those first 2 weeks that he paid to have it out. So he lost a shit ton of money. But because it gained a cult following where it's getting like midnight shows sold out all the time, I'm not even going to talk about how much money he's made off the thing because nobody really knows, but everyone knows he's made a profit. It's insane. And he's made even more of a profit because James Franco acquired the rights to his story, made a movie about him. Now, the reason I'm bringing this dude up, not just because I watched it, is because his story kind of taps into a very real fear of mine, which is being delusional. What if What if I'm being delusional? Like, what if I wrote a story and made a movie that I thought was amazing, the best thing since, whatever, since Citizen Kane, since The Godfather, since Gangs of Wasseypur, since PK or Three Idiots? Like, what if I thought it was the best thing since any of those things that I love? Or Whiplash, that's my favorite movie of all time. And then I come to find out that it's really awful. And I had no idea all along the way. Somehow I got to the finish line only to discover that my script, my acting, the movie, everything was awful. That would be horrible. That would be so horrible. And, it's just like, I can't imagine how Tommy Wiseau must have felt upon initially realizing just how people felt about his movie that he found to be so precious and artistic. It seems like he's cool. Like, he's done guest spots on things, and apparently he's a really nice guy, and he's fun to hang out with. So he took lemons that life handed him and turned it into lemonade, that's for sure. But yeah, being delusional is something that's so scary because you wouldn't even realize that you're doing it. I hope I'm not giving you guys like a panic attack as you're listening to this, and hope maybe you guys think you're delusional all of a sudden. No. It takes a very special kind of person to be that delusional, I think. Maybe I am that person, though. Maybe I am that delusional. I think I'm more the kind of person to doubt myself more than I am the kind of person to think that what I did was amazing, because I come from a perfectionist perspective. Oh, that reminds me, there was a comment that got blocked last week automatically because it had some language in it or something, and I thought to myself, this negative comment needs to be read on the next episode. I need to respond to this because why not? I'll read the positive comments first, or the ones that I've selected, and then I will go ahead and read that comment. I think I'm going to start with the big one. I'm going to start with this email that was sent to me by a fan. I think he left a comment first, and then I said, if you want to talk about this in an email, go ahead and send it to me. Full disclosure, if you guys send me an email, I'm going to read it on the next episode, potentially. If you leave a comment, it will potentially go on the next episode. Just, want to put that out there so no one's like surprised when they... Now, the thing is, it's important you let me know whether or not I can say your name on this program, and if you don't tell me, I'm not going to say your name just out of precaution. Now, if you're leaving a comment, I'm going to say your name because that's public anyhow. But if you're sending me an email, that's more private, and I'm less inclined to say your name if you don't give me permission in advance. Let's read the email. Hey, Jaby, my name is blank. I'm going to keep that blank. And I'm a second-year architecture student from Bombay. I'm really invested in your journey of navigating through Bollywood. I think you're doing a really good job. Well, thank you. Now to start with, just so I can give this dude a name, I'm going to call him Frank. Let's just call him Frank. So... that's one of my favorite names to use. Now, to start with the issue, you know that it's a huge deal for most Asian parents for their kids to do well in school. I'm going through something very similar, although my parents aren't very concerned about marks personally, but for the sake of society, they want me to do well. My dad is kind of an all-rounder. When he was young, he was good at sports, music, and as well as studies. I constantly feel like he and everyone else wants me to become like that because he feels like he didn't do enough. Wow, that's, I think that's how most parents are. Most parents that care anyway, like they don't feel like they did enough and they want their kids to succeed them. They want their kids to do bigger and better than them. I don't come from a very wealthy family, and so being successful has always been a priority. It's funny that he's saying that because success is actually one of the things I really want to talk about today. I don't come from a very wealthy family, so being successful has always been a priority, but no one wants to believe that money can come out of art as well. Yeah, that's a common belief. I failed my second-year exams last year, and I'm having to repeat a year. My parents have been quite supportive, but they wouldn't let me drop out of this field. My dad says I can do theater on the side, but that's basically impossible. Our education system is designed so that the students are always working. My parents have both overcome some really tough times to give me the life that I have, and I don't want to let them down, but I feel like I'm living someone else's life. God, I've heard that so many times from you guys. At this point, I'd rather have them yell at me over a misunderstanding than to have a heart-to-heart conversation and have my opinions shot down. I think they will hate me if they know what kind of person I am. After the year drop, when I saw that all my friends were going forward with their lives and doing what they love, I started talking to people online and realized that I was in depression. After a week or two, I started having thoughts of suicide. I would hope for an accident every time I was in a car. I tried telling people, but no one took me seriously. I knew that I had to get out of that phase. I still think of it, but rarely. What I want to do in life is to help stop sexual harassment since it happened to me at the age of 6. My babysitter, a family friend, molested me for a very long time, and I didn't realize for a very long time how wrong it was. I didn't realize I was a victim until I was 12 and heard a rape report on the TV. I try to help victims talk about it, but I want to do it through my art. In short, I don't think I'm fulfilling the purpose of my life. I think I've ranted on for way too long. Thank you for hearing me out. Now, I read his whole email because it was very heartfelt, and I think that a number of you guys can actually relate to what he had to say. I only kind of skimmed through it the first time around just to see what he was saying, and I determined that reading his whole thing would be worthwhile. It has value. I think that it's very common, especially in India from what I'm understanding, that kids who want to do this thing that is not the norm, that isn't guaranteed success, can lead to a lot of conflict at home. And I get where your dad's coming from about wanting you to do it on the side, because he's essentially hoping that you give it up. He's essentially hoping that you kind of abandon that in favor of something realistic, because your expectations are very unrealistic to him. Now, like you said, you're living someone else's life. You're living the life that your dad wants you to live. You're living his life that he's living vicariously through you, so to speak. Hopefully that's not confusing. And I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry that you're going through that, man. I know that that must be tough, and it's hard, and you feel trapped in that situation. And I know that feeling. It sucks. It's like you feel like you understand what you want to do with your time in your life, and if you could just be free of these constraints that other people are placing on you, just maybe you could get it done and make it happen. I get that feeling. I've been there, man. And I think a lot of us have. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to tell you that you have to ask yourself some serious questions, and you have to decide what's going to hurt more 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. What will hurt more? What are you going to be more like? You shouldn't be afraid of your parents. You should be afraid of yourself 20 years from now and the anger you're going to feel at yourself, because you can't take this back. Once today passes, it's past. There's no taking it back. There's no rewinding. You can't go back a chapter. It's like it's just going to pass, and you kind of just have to take those experiences with you and move forward from there. You can't change it. So all you can do is control what's in front of you right now. Now, your parents probably will be very upset with you if you confront them and tell them, look, this is who I really am. This is how I really feel. This is what I want to do with my time. And if you really believe in yourself and you have a game plan for how you can make it happen, you'll see success on the other side of that. Where there's a will, there's a way. And if it's not exactly what you have in mind, another kind of success will spin out of that. You'll find something else in that. You will find a new life in that. I mean, even this thing with YouTube isn't exactly what I planned, honestly. Like, my game plan was totally different. Me having an audience that is mostly comprised of Indians was not my game plan. It happened, and I just embraced it. I just went with it. And so I think that even if it doesn't go exactly how you want it to, something will come along the way that you can embrace, and it will change your life, and you'll be happier, so much happier than following the path that your dad's laying out for you. Now, that being said, you still can possibly find happiness in the path that your dad wants you to follow, but you will surely have some kind of regret that you're going to have to wrestle with and confront and get past, and it's not going to be easy. Even I, who has mostly been stubborn following my own path, I deal with regret sometimes. I try to kill it. I try very hard to ignore it, but regret still persists sometimes, and you got to deal with that. Now, the whole thing about sexual harassment. I'm going to talk about something that I have not talked about anywhere else before, publicly. I'm going to talk about something that happened to me when I was a kid. And I haven't fully dealt with this myself. You decided to share, Frank, you decided to share your story, so I'm going to share mine. And I've only shared this with very close friends. Right now in the States, I don't know if this is around the world, but right now in the States, we have the hashtag #MeToo, I believe, is the name of the movement, where a lot of women, even men, are coming out talking about how they've been sexually harassed and whatnot, mistreated, raped even, like really bad things, really offensive things that, people in positions of great power have done. I'm going to talk about this for the first time, and it's like, not to keep the suspense going, I apologize. It's just kind of difficult because I haven't ever talked about it publicly, and I didn't want to. Like, I saw everyone on Facebook kind of coming forward and talking about this thing that's happened to them, and I'm like, what's that going to do? Like, what's that going to do? And I kind of get it on an intellectual level. Like, by everyone talking about this, we're more aware of how prevalent these issues are. But at the same time, like, I don't want to share my business on that. It just doesn't seem like it's going to add anything or help in any way. So what happened to me was this. My uncle was babysitting me. And let me keep this as brief as possible. I don't want to really dive into this because it might make me really uncomfortable and make the rest of this podcast difficult to do. The short of it is I was molested when I was a really, really, really young boy. And when it happened, I didn't know what was happening. I just knew that something was inherently wrong. Something was amiss. Like, that wasn't supposed to happen, I think, was my thought. Like, that's not how this is supposed to go. Like, I didn't need that to happen. That was my thought process as a kid. Not exactly like those words, obviously. I didn't have that level of intelligence as a kid, but that thought is essentially what I had. And only years later did I realize, oh my God, like, I was molested as a kid. And that was wrong. And ever since then, I haven't been able to, like, look at my uncle the same way. And I still have to be in the same room as him sometimes. Now, it being an Asian family makes this a much bigger conundrum because I talked to my mom about it. And my mom's whole thing is like, she doesn't want to cause issues in the family. It would be better to just sweep it under the rug. But I know my uncle knows that I know something, and that my relationship with him is totally not the same as it was before, because I don't even greet him when he comes in. When he tries to talk to me, I don't even look at him. I like glance his way and look away, and I move to the other side of the room. He knows something's off, but he doesn't exactly know why. And with this whole Me Too, #MeToo thing, like, I'm sure some part of him is wondering if I'm going to confront him or do something to, Anyway, I haven't decided what to do with that yet. I don't know if there's any point. It's like, what is that really going to do? But I did have a fear that maybe he sexually abused, one of my younger cousins or something like that. I have yet to talk to my cousins about it. I didn't know if I should. It would, like, to talk about it would reveal my thing, and maybe nothing happened to them, and now I'm just making shit weird. I don't know. I do need to. You saying that to me reminds me now that I do need to have some kind of conversation with my family. I just haven't figured out how to go about it yet. And I know that a lot of people get sexually harassed when they're young, and they're helpless, and it's gross, and it's disgusting, and it sucks. It's the worst. And I'm sorry that you went through that, is all I can say. So anyway, I've taken up a lot of time talking about this email. Hopefully that gave you some direction, Frank. Hopefully that helped you out a little bit. I know it's difficult, but let me tell you something. It's never going to get easy, and doing your dad's path is not going to be easy either. All of it's difficult. All of it's fucking hard. You just have to figure out which hard path you want to take. So let's go to the comments that I saved. Srinidhi Srinivasan. I'm butchering that. I'm sorry. Hey, Jaby, you're great at reviewing and reacting, but I feel what makes you stand out as a YouTuber is the fact that you're so open and genuine with your words and your speech that listening to you feels like there's an actual person next to me having a conversation with me. I have a really short attention span. You made me listen to for an hour. Guess that counts as a miracle. Also, the perfectionism is something I could relate to on a very fundamental level. I'm an architect, and I take a really, really long time to design because I tend to focus on the details and try to make every tiny thing perfect. It drains my energy, sad face. It's a tough life. So, the reason I highlighted this one is mainly because he said he listened to the whole thing. And I did notice, like, people leaving certain comments that indicated they listened to the whole thing for the entire hour. And that really made me happy that people actually took the time to listen to the whole thing. The fact that he has a short attention span and listened to the whole thing is even more impressive. That made me really happy. I don't know what happened. Something happened in my kitchen. I don't know if you guys heard that. Anyway, perfectionism. I don't want to talk too long about perfectionism, but it's one of the most brutal things to possess in your personality. It's awful. And if you are not a perfectionist, that's good. That's probably a really good thing. Apparently, people who aren't perfectionists actually accomplish more because they're just turning out more. And you might actually learn more if you're not a perfectionist because you're turning things around quicker. So my advice to you is if you can find a way to dial that back by like 5 to 10%. Care just a little bit less. Find a way to relax a little bit about it. Like, you get to 90% of the way. It's that last 10% that really drains our energy, I think. The last 10% of details. I even find with my videos, all the videos that I do, like, I'll get through the entire edit, but then it's like the sprucing it up and making it really nice is what takes so much time. And I have learned to dial that back a little bit, It's still really hard, though. It's like a very intrinsic part of my personality. And I don't know how old you are, Srinidhi. You're an architect, so I imagine that you're at least in your mid-20s, maybe late 20s. Now is the time to work on that. Because once you pass 30, it's so much harder, from what I understand, it's so much harder to correct things in your personality. And life is short. Try to keep that in mind whenever you're a perfectionist and scrutinizing over every detail. Life is short. Tomorrow it could be over. So try to keep that in mind as well. Do you want to spend your whole life scrutinizing over details or moving forward with other things? Hopefully that helps a little bit. Not that you were looking for advice, but it's free. It's here anyway. Sufyan Ahmed. About talk of psychology in India in a day-to-day life. Most Indian parents don't give a shit about psychology. They fail to understand that different kind of upbringing and family thinking or environment have a major effect on their child's overall development and personality. For them, child is behaving in a certain way because of everything he notices in the outside world and not what he feels and faces at home. I don't think that's just India. I think that's common around the world. I think that's a very common thing everywhere. I mean, I dealt with that too. I think everyone kind of deals with that. The reason why it's common is because parents don't want to believe that they are responsible for their child acting a certain way. They don't want to believe that it comes from them, that they failed as a parent. There's a lot of ego in the way, and that's natural and that's normal. I don't know if that'll ever truly go away. We might progress to a certain point. I think that in the UK they're a bit more progressive, and maybe they are able to reflect more than we do here in the States, or the way you guys do in India. I think in Argentina, they very regularly do therapy. Everyone does therapy. That's a normal thing. So there's a lot of self-reflection. There's a lot of that happening all the time. Everybody does therapy. It's a common thing. They love it over there. At least according to Natalia, that's the situation. Sophia F. Awesome podcast, Jaby. I think I love it when you ramble on. Looking forward to more. P.S. I do think you're funnier than Greg, and I know how much it pisses off my elder sister when I'm better than her at something. I don't think I'm funnier than Greg, honestly. I think that we each have our own funny things, like things where we are more funny than each other in different areas. But in general, overall, I think Greg is far more funny than I am. If you guys didn't catch it, we did a live stream yesterday, and I actually revealed that to Greg, how I felt and how good it made me feel when I was able to make him laugh on the set of I Want My Lauren's video. And he was actually really surprised. And in that video, we actually talked about things that Gregory didn't even remember or realize. And so that live stream is actually really interesting for those of you guys who want a deeper insight into my relationship with my brother. You should check it out if you find the time. I put it in the playlist that this video also belongs in. Okay, this comes from Maya Singh. Jaby, quote, I'm not arrogant. Quote, I don't think so highly of myself. Quote, I don't have a God complex. Yet, number one, goes on rants elucidating how big of a perfectionist he is. Let me start there, because we got to unpack each thing you say. Perfectionism isn't something someone ascribes to themselves or attributes to themselves as something that's a positive thing. Perfectionism is actually a very detrimental and negative thing. It's viewed in a negative light because it's so fucking time-consuming. It's so just consuming. It just consumes your personality, your time, your life, your mind, your mental power, that it hurts. It's draining. It's not a good thing. So you're interpreting perfectionism as this positive thing that I'm ascribing to myself. I'm not. I'm looking at it in a very honest and kind of negative light, to be honest with you. Number two, constantly referring to himself as a third person jokingly just to manipulate you of thinking that he's not conceited. I think that anybody who puts themselves in front of a camera and blasts that video out to the world is on some level self-centered, on some level egotistical, on some level conceited. That is inherent to everybody who does videos, who does movies, who is a performer, who's a theater performer, a movie performer, whatever it is. Anyone who does anything related to entertainment on some level has an ego, is self-conceited or self-centered on some level. That aside, my referring to myself in third person is actually a joke. Like, it amuses me. What happened was, I was watching That 70s Show many years ago, and that was a joke in the show. Like, the teacher referred to himself in third person or something like that, and so the main character did the same thing, and I thought that was just genius. I thought it was so funny. No one else thinks it's funny but me. But because I think it's funny, that's why I keep doing it. Referring to myself in third person amuses me. I'm sorry that it doesn't amuse you, Maya Singh. Maya. But it amuses me. Number 3, replies to anyone discording with him condescendingly with the excuse that he's just trolling back and these people are just jealous of him. Now, here's the thing. It's hard to qualify opinions on YouTube when they're coming in the form of a comment or even an email. It's hard to qualify certain opinions because I don't know you, I don't know where you come from, I don't know your history, I don't know your taste, I know nothing about you. Whereas if it's a reviewer like Achara or myself or Greg or... I don't want to name any reviewers that I know of because you guys might not be familiar with them. But like I grew up watching Siskel and Ebert, and then eventually that became Ebert and Roper. I was very familiar with their personalities and their style, their way of doing things. And so when they liked or didn't like something, it made sense to me because I had context. With most comments coming in, it's easy to accept love or appreciation or positive energy. When you're criticizing me, I don't actually know where you're coming from. I don't know who you are, what your history is, like what you're about, and I have no context for your comment. And so if it comes off as pure hate, which often it does, I'm going to respond to you accordingly. I'm going to respond to you in either a condescending manner or in like a troll because it amuses me. It's like, what else can I do with hate? Here's the thing. Sometimes people leave a comment that's really nasty, and I respond in a nasty way, either in a mean way or in a troll way. Inevitably, someone will come back and be like, why are you doing that, Jaby? He's just expressing his opinion or her opinion. And it's like, I'm expressing my opinion or whatever. I was going to say her opinion, like a dummy. I'm expressing my opinion. Am I not allowed to express my opinion back? Like, is that wrong? And so it seems like when you're in this position, as soon as you respond, you're an asshole no matter what you say, unless you go, thanks. So that's why I do that. It's because most of the negative comments coming in, when there are negative comments, don't actually have constructive criticism. They're just hate. Like, if someone goes, you need to do it better. Like, what does that mean? That's not constructive. I don't know what you're talking about. It's not specific enough. Or, this was shitty. Like, what was shitty? Specifically what? Like, the whole thing? Parts of it? It's sometimes these comments are very, very ambiguous when they're mean or when they're negative. And so how else can I respond? I just joke back because it amuses me. And I'll go back and forth with people like a troll because it's funny and it's fun sometimes. I don't do it very often, but when I do it, it's because it amuses me. So, number 4, when he meets people for the first time, the whole conversation has to be all about him and what kind of projects he's been part of. In parenthesis, the TVF office visit was a great example of that. Okay, look. When people meet me, oftentimes I have no idea who they are. Like if someone says, hey, Jaby, and they come up and greet me, I don't know who they are. More often than not, when I meet someone for the first time, I'm actually asking questions about them. I encourage anybody listening to this who has met me in real life to comment to that notion. If you've met me in real life, tell me, what did I say to you? How did we interact? How was I a jerk? Was I nice? And what did I ask you any questions about you? Like, what was it like? I'm curious. I'm curious as to how I come off to people. Because in my mind, I try to be as nice as possible, and I ask questions about them because they obviously know who I am. I don't know anything about them. And this thing with TVF, I don't actually know what you're talking about without watching the video again, and I'm not going to sit through that 20-minute video right now. But if I had to guess, they were asking me questions, and I just cut out the part where they asked me a question, or I was just looking for a way to jumpstart the conversation, so I started with something about me, and then, we'll migrate into something else about them. I don't know, because otherwise it's just me going, you're awesome, you're awesome, you're awesome. Like, that's really all I was saying the whole time at TVF. You're awesome. I love you, what you do. I love what you do. This is so cool. Like, what else can I say? And by the way, for those of you wondering why I'm going into this, is because this Maya Singh person is saying things that not just Maya Singh feels. Other people feel it too. So I'm kind of addressing all the people who feel this way. Number 5, belittling other people's accomplishments just to subliminally give them the impression that what they have done wasn't that important. For instance, when Jasmeet Singh Bhatia told him that he was featured on the YouTube annual Rewind video, which is well known for all creators on YouTube and a big deal, Jaby dismissed it and responded nonchalantly, I don't know what that is, or what that's, because he spelled it like that. I didn't know what that was, genuinely. So, yeah, you're a fucking idiot. Like, I just didn't know what that was. You're reading way too deep into something. Like, I wasn't being dismissive. I just didn't know what it was. So if all these signs are not indicative of a well-developed, self-centered egomaniac, I don't know what is. So spare me, Jaby, with the act. We all know you're full of it. LOL. Just keep in mind that a big ego is always a reflection of a small penis. So how would you know that? Do you have a big ego? And is your penis small? Like, how did you figure that out? Are you the penis inspector whenever you come across someone with a big ego? So you're a penis expert, are you? You know exactly what they all look like. So that doesn't reflect well on you, pal. Those are the comments. I started with the positive, and I ended on that one negative one, but I still spun it around. I think. I don't know. Maybe I just made myself out to be more of a jerk. Who knows? Maybe we are all jerks and penis inspectors. Who knows? Now I can talk about what I wanted to talk about, which is success. So this is kind of twofold. It's not just success, but it's also happiness. There was a video I watched a while back on Google, and not on Google, on Facebook, but it was a guy who was like an owner, or not an owner, but like in a high-ranking position at Google, and he was talking about what is happiness? What is happiness? And a lot of people attribute happiness to, or confuse happiness with laughing a lot, or, being excited all the time, or, going out on Friday night and listening to loud music and kind of drowning out your thoughts. Like, they think that's happiness, and they're conflating these ideas. But happiness, according to this dude, who I can't remember at the moment, I don't remember his name, happiness is a state of mind. It's content. And being able to sit back and go, I'm good. That's happiness. That's real happiness, according to him. And I'm inclined to agree. And I often try to just kind of sit and relax and go and just kind of enjoy the peace and enjoy the silence in my apartment and smile and go, yeah, like, I'm good. I feel good. Like, this is cool. And it's hard to do that sometimes. It's hard to just recognize that you are allowed to do that. You're allowed to sit back and go, okay, and take a moment, take a breather, and just chill out. And that's happiness. This thing that people do on the weekends, going and dancing and having a blast, having fun. Fun is an occasional thing. It's got a very limited lifespan. When you go out on the weekend and you have fun dancing or whatever, playing video games, it's all very limited. Eventually that stops. What do you do when it stops? If you don't know how to be content when nothing is happening, you will be depressed. You will be sad. And you have to be able to go, this is nice. I'm good. I feel good. And that's it. And it's very simple. I don't actually know what I'm talking about. I'm just kind of relaying to you guys my experiences with it. Now, success is the same kind of thing. So I get asked a lot about my YouTube channel, obviously, and why I decided to do it, and if I thought this or I thought that at the outset. And as I mentioned earlier, there was a number of things I couldn't have predicted at the outset, and I just kind of rolled with the punches. But I had one thought, and I mentioned this before. I may have mentioned this in a previous podcast, but for a number of you listening to this or watching this, as the case may be, you may not have listened to or watched the previous podcast, and therefore this will be new to you. My thought was this. I was working at a job I did not like. I was very miserable. I was very unhappy. And the reason I was unhappy was because everybody was my boss. I was everybody's bitch, essentially. Because I'm trying to be careful in case the person who employed me at that place ever listens to this or watches this, which is very unlikely, but I'm trying to be careful. Essentially, my position was the bottom of the totem pole is what it felt like. Everyone depended on me. Everyone depended on me, but I was no one's boss. I was not in charge of anybody, and everyone was not only dependent on me, but they were kind of my boss. Anybody could get me in trouble at any time. And while that may not be such a big deal, like from the outside, you may not think it's a big deal. When you're in an environment like casting, where everybody's egos are flying high all the time, everyone's sensitive all the time and stressed out all the time, it's very stressful to be at the bottom of that totem pole and receive that negative energy from everybody. I imagine it's akin to being like a cop or something, or a highway patrol officer here in the States, where you're constantly dealing with negativity all the time. Like, that's the input you're getting left and right. That was just a tough time for me. And I did that job for a long time, and I didn't really have much of another choice. It's what paid the bills. And I knew I needed to get out of it. I knew I wouldn't last much longer. And I determined, based off my brother's experience, if I could just get to 100,000 subscribers, if I could just do that, I could make my living off YouTube. I could totally, conceivably make my living off YouTube videos. Now, my understanding of YouTube is totally different now than it was back then. The subscriber count doesn't matter as much as the view count, but that aside, my goal was 100,000 subscribers by December of 2016. That was my goal. And that would be success to me, to be able to be free of my normal job. And I managed to hit 100,000 within 3 or 4 months because I was very, very dedicated. I came across something that no one else was doing, at least not like the way I did it, I guess, or whatever. Like I don't know what it is that made my videos more special than anyone else. Like, because I know that at the same time, Tama Puck was doing it. Like, I think Tama Puck actually started before me because I looked at his earliest videos with Indian content, and his came out just like maybe a few weeks before mine did. For whatever reason, mine's the one that really took off and gained a lot of success. He gained success too, not to the level that I did, and I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I mean that just by the numbers, just sheer numbers. I don't really know what made mine any more special. Maybe it's because I don't want to go into thinking of why. You guys can tell me why if you feel like it. But what matters is I worked really hard, and I put my nose to the grindstone. I did it all the time, every day. It's like I lived and breathed and ate YouTube. And I managed to hit 100,000 like a lot quicker than I thought I was going to. And by the end of the year, I actually got to 300,000. And now we're coming up on 500,000. So to me, success, it was 100,000. And now it's all about maintaining that success. People go, how do you feel? You're about to hit 500,000 subscribers. And I'm like, it's cool. Like, I don't really think about it anymore. I'm in that perpetual state of success and just kind of trying to maintain that to the best of my abilities. Because even though I'm in a position of success, like, in my opinion, this is success. I get stressed out a lot. I get stressed out all the time. And I think the next level of success for me with regards to this channel is to get to a position where I'm just having fun and I'm not stressed out. That's the next stage. So success to me is just whatever stage you believe your success is in. Like, stage 1 for you could be getting your college degree in engineering. And then after that, landing a really successful job. And then that's it. That's your success. You have made it. And it's all about maintaining that from there. The thing that I think people fail to realize is that work doesn't stop, ever. And it shouldn't. It shouldn't. You have to be like a shark, always moving. Always moving. And even after I hit the age of retirement, what is the age of retirement here in the States, which I think is like 65, I want to keep doing stuff. I want to keep at it, like Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood is like in his 90s almost, or if he's not already, and he's still directing movies. That guy can barely move, and he's still directing movies. That's what I want to be doing, up to the end. Directing movies, making stuff happen, not letting anything stop me. That's who I want to be. All this to say, success is just a state of mind. That's it. It's just whatever you think success is. If you think success is getting to your front door, then you are successful every single day. And that in itself can actually it can infuse you with more happiness. There was another Facebook video that I liked a lot. It was by this military guy who was talking about success, I believe, as well. And one of the things he said was, make your bed every day. As soon as you get up, the first thing you do, make your bed. So you know that day you accomplished at least one thing. That day you accomplished at least making your bed. So when you come home, when you go into your room, you can see you succeeded at something that day. You will see your success when you come home, when you walk into your room. There it is. You made your bed. And a lot of people don't make their beds. A lot of people leave it a mess. Don't be that person. Make your bed the moment you wake up. When you wake up, make your bed right away. What I want to talk about next, and I think this will be the last thing I talk about, and then I'll wrap this video up. What I want to talk about next is, if you guys are struggling with something, I may have mentioned this in another video, but if you're struggling with something, I wanted to give you a little bit of advice on how to deal with it. There's this thing called morning pages, and I apologize if you've already heard me talk about it, but I want to talk about it again because I believe so strongly in it. If you've never heard of morning pages, what it essentially helps you do is to clear your mind out. It helps you to dump mentally. The way morning pages works is one of two ways. The moment you wake up, first and foremost, you need to have a pen and you need to have a notebook of some kind. And this is only for you and not to be shared with anyone else. Morning pages is where the moment you wake up, you write in your notebook for either 3 pages straight or 10 minutes straight. And you do not stop until either 10 minutes is up or 3 pages is up. And you don't cheat by writing big cursive handwriting. You write how you would normally write, and you just keep writing until those 3 pages are done. And even if you don't know what to write, even if you're writing, I'm just doing this because Jaby told me to do this, I'm just going to keep writing now because Jaby said I have to, and I'm going to, and then you eventually you will do this dumping process mentally. And eventually you can ask yourself questions, and then you're forced to answer those questions because you have to keep writing. I was in a short-term relationship, I could say, back in March of 2016. It was March or April, I can't remember. I was dating this woman who, I don't think I ever talked about her. I'm not going to say her real name. I'm going to call her Jane so that she stays anonymous. Jane had a child who was about 11 or 12 years old. Now, if you guys don't know already, I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, I was in a 4-year relationship where I essentially had a daughter. About 3 or 4 months after that breakup, I met Jane. I met her on OkCupid. And what happened was I was really just I was blown away by how beautiful she was. She looks like the woman from Edge of Tomorrow and Sicario, that actress. I can't remember her name right now, but she looks just like her. I was taken aback by her looks. Just like, I was just like, how lucky am I to be dating this chick? She didn't know about my YouTube channel. That's not how she knew who I was. We just met through OkCupid. It was interesting because when we were on our first date, she didn't say a whole lot. It was mostly me talking, and I was just filling in the void of nothing because she wasn't saying much. But apparently, I found out later on, like, she wanted me to kiss her that night, and I just was too chicken shit to do so. I'm generally chicken shit when it comes to the first kiss. Like, I just so am. Like, it just freaks me out. Like, what if she doesn't want it? There was another person who was actually a guest on my channel after we went on a date. We decided to just be friends. But apparently, like, she wasn't expecting me to kiss her when I did, and that kind of bothered her, even though she was actually the one who kissed me first. That was an example of, like, me thinking there's an opening, maybe I should do it, I go for it. Turns out, no, I shouldn't have. What the So, anyway, back to Jane. We go out, a number of times, and it turns out she really likes me. And Jane was working at a job that was barely enough to pay for herself and feed her kid. And she was living with, I think, her brother or her cousin or something. What I realized was that I was essentially dating my ex-girlfriend, because my ex-girlfriend started out the exact same way. Her job wasn't really paying many bills, and she was barely able to take care of her daughter. And so here's me kind of reliving history, and that was already a sign that maybe this wasn't a good idea. But it seemed like she really liked me, and I was really into her, and it seemed like we could grow together. So I was trying my best to just embrace it. What I realized was that she wasn't the most responsible person. And what I tend to do when I'm in a relationship is I tend to own the whole thing, as my therapist told me, where I'll own the responsibilities of both sides. And meaning, if my girlfriend puts herself in debt, I'm going to feel guilty, I'm going to feel responsible, and I'm going to want to give her money to help her get out of that debt, even though that has nothing to do with me, even though it's not my problem. I'll feel compelled to help her just so she's not in debt, because if she's in debt, I feel like I'm in debt, and I don't want me to be in debt, so I'm going to get her out of debt. It's a stupid thing. It's a really stupid thought process, and I don't know where that comes from. But what happened was this. Jane went to a concert of some kind. Let me tell you how I received this information. Jane told me she got into a car accident, and I was like, what? How'd that happen? And she sends me a picture of her photo, of her car rather, and the car was like dented right down the middle of the front. And I was like, how did that happen? She was like, I was going too fast in a parking lot. I was like, how did you go too fast in a parking lot? And I found out later on, when she came over again, because I guess she didn't want to tell me because she knew it might bother me, is that she was drunk behind the wheel. It really upset me because her car was totaled and she needed to get a new car. And she didn't really have the money to get a new car. And I'm like, you're a mother. You're a single mom. You have a job that barely covers your bills. And you're drunk driving and now you need a new car. And suddenly I felt like I had to somehow help her through this, and I realized, no, this is not my problem. Like, I didn't create this problem. Like, she's doing this. And if I stay with this person, it could lead to me being very miserable. And so what I did was I went into my morning journal, and I started writing, and then I asked, should I stay with Jane? No. That's what came out. Like, and then I had to explain it to myself. And I realized that right then and there, I can't ignore this. Like, my my subconscious, or whatever you want to call it, my stream of thought consciousness, it spoke for me. And it said deep down, I don't want to stay with this person. And it's better to be single than be with someone who's irresponsible and is going to essentially place a lot of burdens on your life that you don't need right now. It might sound cold-hearted to a number of you guys, but it was the most responsible thing I could do is to step away from that relationship. And I offered her to stay friends and to help her out any way I could. I offered to actually help her be part of my YouTube channel so she could at least make money that way. And she didn't want to. I realized that it wasn't going to work, and I was going to be more miserable staying in that relationship trying to help her out than otherwise. And so I left. And I think that morning pages afforded me that. And I think that as a result of that, because she was kind of bitter. She was really bitter from that. She was really upset that I left her. I think what she realized is that she had to grow and be a more responsible person. And she did. She actually ended up getting a much better job. She ended up working as a dental assistant and moving out and finding a good place for her and her daughter on her own, instead of having to live off her cousin. Good for her, is what I can say. But see how the ripple effect of the morning pages, of how the positive aspects of that, like morning pages will do you so much. Even if you are just like dealing with a little bit of a conundrum, try morning pages out. Try it out. See what happens. You'll be surprised at the positive results you'll get from it. So that's it, you guys. I think that I've ranted on long enough. I love you guys, and I really appreciate your positive comments from last week. It means so much to me that you guys really enjoyed it. I'm glad that I made you guys laugh. Again, if you've got anything you want to ask me or talk to me about, send me an email and let me know if you want your name mentioned or not. I won't mention your name if you don't give me permission to. Leave me a comment asking a question or talking about something in your life, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. So that's it for now. Thanks so much for hanging out. You guys are amazing. You're awesome. Have a fantastic day. Kick ass at whatever it is that you do, that you're wanting to do, that you need to do. Do the things that you've been wanting to do. Don't put it on hold anymore. Go be amazing. Go be the amazing person that you are. Fuck what Bob says. You're amazing. You're awesome. You're great. Go kick ass. I love you. I'm Jaby We Met. Peace out.